Welcome back to this session. In this session, just before this, we went through the first three items on our agenda. The B Corp movement, what is the mission of it and the future of business? The B Corp community, who are the B Corps and how many are there? And the B Corp certification, how does a company actually become a certified B Corp? And we did part one of that. We will be doing part two of that, which is the assessment itself and the legal change. So diving into what does this assessment really look like? We will now also, during this session, we will also go through the benefits of B Corps. So why do businesses actually want to become B Corps? What drives them in this quest for certification? So let's dive into this second section around B Corp certification, which is the assessment itself. So the B Impact Assessment is the one that we use to certify B Corps. The BIA has key components around it. First, it is a comprehensive assessment that is meant to look at proactive management and positive impact that the company does, considering all its stakeholders and all aspects of the business. It is standardized and adaptive in that it enables us to have different tracks and adjusting it to suit the company's sector and size. So a company that's in, let's say, manufacturing with only 10 employees gets a different track from a company that's in manufacturing with 1,000 employees, or a company that has 10 employees in finance sees different sets of questions from a company that has 10 employees in manufacturing. So it's adaptive to the sector and size, but standardized in a way that enables us to benchmark across. It is objective and dynamic, so the questions within it are verifiable, stakeholder-oriented, and are independently governed. Dynamic in the sense that we update the assessment every 3 years, with the current version companies on version 6, published in 2019, which means we're about 3 years. Next year, you will be seeing a new version of the assessment. And most importantly, the assessment is meant to inspire and educate people. It is, we call it intentionally difficult, but I'd say it is intentionally challenging to get companies to think about where they are now and look at ways in which they could improve based on good practices for their industry. We do provide them with different tools to help educate them on good practices through different resources that we have. What questions are asked? We have different ways in which questions are asked. There are questions around practices. So what exactly is done in what way? Quantitative, percentage questions, metric specific questions. And then we have like the rules ones. So what exactly are rules within the organization? And then what are the outcomes or the effect of whatever it is that the company is doing? So good example around both of this, on the rules one, it's if you have a code of ethics, what is actually required in the code of ethics out of people? So that's a rule or a directive. What do we require from people? Outcomes is if you do have an employee satisfaction survey, are people actually satisfied or not? So that's outcomes focused. So when you look at questions, they will be around practices, you will have quantitative, you will have directives, you will have outcome-based ones. In general, the assessment is split into scored and unscored. Majority of it is scored, and the scored sections focus around your operational impact, so your day-to-day stuff at an organization, your practices, processes, focused on that. And then we have the impact business model. So what stakeholder group through the business model are you trying to impact? So those are scored, and it's where we get the 200 points. And I'd say about 95 to 97% of that section is scored, with metric-specific questions, some of them not scored. Things like, what's your revenue? Those are not scored. How many number of employees do you have? That is not scored. The unscored section is the disclosure questionnaire. The disclosure questionnaire helps us look at what practices that the organization have that have the potential to create negative impact. So think about this as like exclusion lists where we're looking at negative screening. So what exactly is the company doing around areas that are considered to be a negative impact area? And so as you go through the assessment, keep in mind the difference between the two, knowing that one section is scored, unscored, but all have to be completed for a company to be certified as a B Corp. Now, when we look at the distinction between the operational impact and the impact business model, the operational impact is your day-to-day stuff. How are you managing your impact around running the business itself? So here we're looking at your offices, we're looking at employees, your governance structure. It applies to all companies, and it is aligned to be best in class. The impact business model, oh, and sorry, just to clarify, when I say it applies to all companies, it means all companies actually go through the operational impact section and they have to answer questions in that section. Now, when we look at the impact business model, the design of this is looking at how a company, through its model, creates specific positive benefits or specific positive outcome to a particular beneficiary. And this can be based on the product or activity or structure of the organization. The impact business model is extraordinary and is contingent upon companies. So that means it doesn't apply to all companies. Some companies do have impact business models, or IBM in short. Most companies tend not to have it because, again, it's an extraordinary thing. And this is actually unique to the B Impact assessment, where we're looking at the business model itself and how it has been created to benefit a beneficiary, or through its structure, it actually creates positive benefits or outcomes. So the standards themselves within the B Impact assessment. The assessment is free, it's online, it's confidential. In as much as it's free, the company that has registered, they're the only ones who see the information. It's not shared publicly, question level. So question by question, that is not shared publicly. When a company certifies, what they do publish on the website is their score, not the full assessment unless it is, but there are exceptions for, let's say, multinationals or subsidiaries where transparency is required on a granular level. The standards are governed by an independent standards advisory council. We have a standards advisory council that covers the developed market and one that covers emerging markets. The assessment itself, as mentioned earlier, is renewed every 3 years. A company that is certified has to recertify every 3 years as well. And there are many different versions based on the company's sector, size, and geography. So a company that is in a developed market gets different set of questions from a company that's in an emerging market. So we try to distinguish as much as possible by geography, by size here being the number of employees, and by the sector that a company is in. The assessment is positive based, so it looks at positive practices. Are you doing good? So a company will earn points. We do not deduct points. So there is no, if a company says no, there's no -1 or -2. All that happens is they do not earn points for that particular question. And the tool itself, it measures impact, and it also is a performance management tool. So we have built into it improvement tools, best practice guidelines, as well as examples from other B Corps on how they are carrying out specific practices to enable organizations to use it as a do-it-yourself consulting. So even you as a B leader, you could use this as a do-it-yourself consulting. We have resources all the way from the UNGC library to B Corps themselves offering their case studies or examples of how they have improved on certain areas. So all of these are meant to ensure that organizations not only take an assessment and get a sense of where they are right now, but they're also able to identify areas of improvement in the long run. So on the standards itself, to offer more clarity on the governing body, the Standards Advisory Council, they are tasked with the responsibility of approving changes made to the B impact assessment. They determine eligibility for certification and the certification approach, and they review material complaints against B Corps. Just because a company is certified does not mean no one can raise an issue. So this is the body that will review any complaints against a B Corp, and they also approve addenda proposed by working groups. So if you take an assessment and you realize there is a specialized industry that requires questions that are unique to that industry, a good example being the microfinance sector, it's unique enough that you cannot ask them the same questions as, let's say, an insurance company. So they're the ones who then say, let's create an addenda based on recommendations from different working groups. And these working groups can include B leaders as well, based on their experience out in the field. And so the Standards Advisory Council is fully independent of BLAB, but BLAB feeds in to the Standards Advisory Council through the standards analysts who work with companies, and also the product development team offer insights to the Standards Advisory Council. So that's it on how it's governed and what the standards are really trying to accomplish and how it's structured. What I think would be interesting for us to do now is actually hop onto the assessment so I could show you a few features. We will get into each of the sections within the assessment so that you can get to understand the questions, or rather what each of the sections within the assessments are trying to get at. But for now, I'll just show you like tips and tricks that you could use as you navigate the portal on your end. Great. So I have open here my test account, which shows you the B impact assessment. When you log in, which you can access at bimpactassessment.net, when you log in or you've created your own register, or if you have an existing one, what you would want to go to, where you'd want to go to is the B impact assessment if you already have an existing account. If you do not, you will be first directed to the dashboard where you will accept to start the B impact assessment. If your company is already a certified B Corp, you will also be able to see like the different steps. Where are you in the process? Which assessment has been certified, and the different versions that the company has taken of the assessment. So just note your dashboard will look wildly different depending on where you are in this process. So let's dive into the B impact assessment itself. So when a company, as a first step, when a company goes through this process, we encourage them to take the assessment online, because by taking the assessment online, they're able to receive a wealth of information. They are able to see their overall score in real time. So as they answer the assessment, they can be able to come back to this dashboard setting and see what their score is, the percentage they've completed. So it gives them an instinct of how much more time is needed. When they go through the actual assessment, they're able to pick and choose which area they want to start on. Usually, I start on governance because it tends to be the shortest and easiest for me to fill out. But other companies can decide to go with workers or even start with the disclosure questionnaire, which is the one that is not scored, to get that out of the way. So by clicking continue, they're able to dive into the section and actually go to the last place where they answered a question. If you have just created your own B impact assessment, you will have a start option rather than continue. So just note that as you navigate through this, and even as you take companies through that process. So the questions are structured by subtopics. In governance, you have mission and engagement, ethics and transparency, governance metrics, and mission log. I will say that we will go through these sections in more detail in Module 2. And what I would also say is how it's structured is a bit different as well, depending on the sector and size of the organization. Larger organizations see more questions, as you can tell from my end, because this is a large company that I use for my test account. Smaller organizations might even get a quarter of what we see right now. When a company is answered, sorry, to see the question, you will select this option. When a question is answered, the bar changes color to show you that this is answered. If a question is not answered, there will be no color. So this helps to guide companies to just see areas in which they have not answered their question. As you can see from this question, we have on the bottom left, the points available. So a company knows how many points each question is worth in full transparency. They are able to get more information about this particular question. So when they click on Learn, it opens up a window which explains to them what this question is trying to get at. What is an audit? What is the difference between CPA, ACCA, that type of thing? It then also offers them implementation steps. So how could you implement this? And this is the educational part, right? So what are the ways in which other people have implemented, or what are the best practices you could use to implement whatever this question is trying to get at? And in other questions, you will have a third one, which shows you examples, and examples there are cases or case studies that we've been provided by B Corps or other organizations or partners we've worked with that shows you like real life examples of how companies have executed on this. So you can close out by Xing here, or on the bottom right, hit close and it takes you back to the question. There's also a leave feedback option. So this is where you could provide us with more insight. So as a B leader, if you're taking your company through the process, or you're working with a client to take them through the process, you might learn something and you could say, this is a great question. This question is unclear. And if I say this question is unclear, you could then type out and say, let's say in Ivory Coast, we actually have a different requirement for this, and state whatever that is. By hitting submit, this information then gets fed into our standards team, and they can be able to collect that feedback and see ways in which the question could be improved or being made more clear, so that a company in Ivory Coast or wherever it is understands the intent behind it. And there are a number of different options around it, from the question to translation, if you're using the French version, to the answer options, to even saying there's a typo in this, please improve it. So feel free to use the leave feedback, and we do look at the leave feedback option to help improve the assessments. The other feature I wanted to point out that would be useful to you as you work with your companies is set as a goal. So if I look at this question and I say, no, I'm actually not doing this, as a B leader, you could set this as a goal for your company or your client and say, well, right now we said you don't do this, but in a couple of months or so, let's start doing this. So you set a goal for the company and you're able to describe this. So we could say, work with the finance assistant to figure this out. And you can be more detailed like this. I'm just typing quickly. And you can say within a month, you want to make sure we figured out a way in which we will ensure that the company's financials are audited by an internationally accredited CPA. So within a month, we have to make sure that this is done. And then for additional accountability, you could even check to receive email reminders. And this will go to the person whose account this is registered to. So if it's the client that you're working with, and they're the only ones who've registered, the email will go to them. If both of you have registered, you will both get an email with a reminder on the 25th of April that you had said you wanted to improve this to a yes. So the receive email reminder is a great accountability partner, not just for you, but also for whoever else you're working with, whether it's your internal team or a client that you're working with. So once you've said that, you hit save and it will save that recommendation. For now, I will hit cancel just to avoid getting that prompt. The other option you could do is bookmark. Bookmark is also important. Let's say I've answered no to this, but I'm not sure. Rather than saying, okay, let me jot this down and say audited financials, I was not sure, let me get back to it. Bookmark does that for you. So when you bookmark it, it is shifted to a report that I will show you that summarizes all the things that you've bookmarked for clarification. So again, feel free to use that, and I'd say it's super helpful, especially if you're working with a client, or you work in a large organization with multiple departments. The bookmark feature saves a lot of people a lot of time. The last one, just to note here, is you can also put in comments, link in documents, whatever you want. You could just write it out here so that you're able to get as much information as you want out of this. And this can be you writing for yourself or you're writing for whoever is reviewing this. So it could be if you are working as a B leader, you could leave notes in there or comments in there for the client that you're working with, or if you're working on this as a certification for your company, you could write notes there that can be used by the verification team to know where your mind is at as it relates to that. And then you can also attach documents, copy links, which can serve as reminders for you while you answer this question. So again, a number of different ways you could use the platform for your own management of the process. And so to wrap up on the features on questions, so let's say I answer this question as a yes. The minute I hit save, my answer is updated, and you will also see the bar shift to a different color, and the points earned updates as well. So you're able to get real time, have you received full score? If this was a no, I hit save. Again, the points will change to now just say points available, which means I didn't earn any points, so I just got 0. You have to hit save for this to update. If you do not hit save, then the question will not update. So make sure people hit save. Now, once that's done, just hit next, and you'll go to the next question on this subtopic area. So those are some of the features that will help you as you navigate the assessment and as you work with your clients or your team to navigate this. If you want to work offline, there is an option to print this section as a PDF, or even print the whole assessment as a PDF. To print this section, just hit print PDF, and that will enable you to print all the questions within the governance section. If you've not answered them, it will come unanswered. But since I have answers, it will show me the answers I've selected, the points I've earned, points available. So you could see that for this question, I have earned 0.10 points, and there's still and total points was 0.19. So I have like 0.09 points to go. So this gives you a really good overview of how you've answered, especially if you want to share it out, let's say, with other people in the group who are not on the platform or who prefer to work offline. But ideally, you want to bring everyone online. The other feature you could do is download it as an Excel spreadsheet. So this one is a bit more, it's messier because it's just downloading and it will be all the content in Excel. So visually not the most appealing, but still gives you a sense of all the questions. You are also able to add benchmarking and just see in general how the company is performing. So this is your company, and then it compares How is it comparing to peers who are in the same country as you, the same sector, and in the same size range as you? So I could see for this subtopic area, my company is actually doing really badly. But generally, if I look at the whole of governance, I'm doing better than everyone else. So I just need to beef up my mission and engagement, but everywhere else, I seem to be doing better than the rest. So that's also another useful feature that you could use with your clients or even with your company as you navigate this. The other thing just to mention for you is in case you get stuck, there's an online get help where you could search you type what you're looking for and you can get prompts here. If the answer is not there, it will ping someone to respond to you. So feel free to use this feature to get any material that you feel you need. I will also mention that, I just need to show you also how you would print the whole assessment. So you'll just go back to BIA Impact Assessment, print PDF, download as an Excel spreadsheet, or even put in the benchmarking feature as well so that it shows up as you go through each of these sections. So those are the cool, interesting features as you navigate the assessment itself. There are interesting reports that you can pull from this. So the first one is you're able to see a company's performance overall. And this shows you by the different parts of the assessment, the different sections, how the company has answered, the available score. So it gives you a good sense of it. To note, this is my test account, so I haven't filled in all the questions. So it would look better if you finished all the questions. But outside of just seeing overall, you're also able to see on a subsection level how the company has performed. So you're able to at least gauge your performance in each of the sections. And you're also able to add the benchmarking feature. So you're able to see the company's performance, how it compares to B Corps, how it compares to country, sector, size range, and also how it compares to companies that we honor as being best for the world. So the best 10% within the B Corp movement. And this helps us to compare that as well. So that is for the overall score. And then as you see for each of the sections, it also does the same. And if I click into each section, the subsections will also have the benchmarking capability. So this can also be an interesting feature to always have at the back of your mind, because it helps companies. People are super competitive, so it helps them to see how they're performing against others. And you can also print this as a PDF. So again, if you have that client or someone in your team who prefers to do things offline, does not want to remember passwords, the print PDF option is great. It works to ensure that everyone in the team also gets access to this. This is taking a bit, okay, there we go. So you're able to print it and it comes out the same way as it shows up on the site. The other thing is you will have, if you remember, we talked about the bookmark report. So anything you bookmark will come here. So if you need to now go back and answer the questions that we flagged, which was around, do we actually do our audits annually? And I can then confirm with my team that, yes, actually we do that. I can then come back to the bookmark report, find that question, change the answer and save it. And that's it. So I do not have to go back to the assessment to update this. And since now I'm okay with it, I can uncheck that and it gets pulled out of the bookmark report. The last bit is the improvement report. So remember, as I said, a company can set a goal and be able to now work on those for improvement. And so those are pulled in here. So any company that marks that for improvement, this pulls in those questions where there's still room for improvement. So a company can come here and just look at questions directly and see what exactly they want to improve on. If I've set a specific goal for myself, then this will earmark the dates. So you can see I've set quite a bit and they're all majority of past due, one is coming up. So this also helps you to keep track of how you're doing as a company or how your client is doing in staying on top of things that they say they want to improve. Outside of what you've set for yourself, the system does also offer you some suggestions that are based on your current responses, areas that we think you are likely to improve on the goal for next time. So the system also does help you out. And you get a nice one here where if you've completed a goal, you can be able to see it. So those are other features that you should be able to use to get as much out of this platform as possible. And then the last bit I want to show you is around settings. So in settings, you can add team members. And this is important. So let's say you are working on this for your own organization and you want to add other people. It's as easy as sending an invite by putting in their name, their email address, and then if you want to offer them instructions, you can offer them instructions here. If you're working with a client, you can create the account for them, and then the client, you can invite the client to come and start the assessment. Or if the client already has created the assessment, they can send an invite to you so that you're able to work with them through their assessment by having a live version. This option tends to be it requires a lot of trust because it means you have a lot of sensitive information from the client. So I would not say you go push for clients to do this. It has to be something they're willing to do. If they do not want to have you on their BE impact assessment, then they could easily send you PDF versions, or you could be working with them live and they just get to keep their assessment as theirs to also avoid like overwriting each other's work. The other thing to mention is if you do add team members, it's easier for you to assign different responsibilities to people. So you could say, Olivia, you're doing HR, Peter, you're going to do governance, Cedric, you're going to do community, and Lorna, you're going to do environment, and I will do customers, right? And all of you, if you just focus on those sections, you will not overwrite each other's answers, even if you're doing it at the same time. Same thing with you. If you're working as a B leader with a client and you're in different parts of the assessment, you will not overwrite each other. However, if you're, let's say, both in governance and you are working on one question together at the same time, your answers can cancel each other out. So just make sure that however you roll it out, people are not kind of answering the same area at the same time. You could even divide by subtopic, but just don't say everyone work on governance. It should be work on mission and engagement in governance, work on mission lock in governance, work on ethics and transparency in governance, and no one should do anything anywhere else unless it's been directly assigned. Great. So those are some of like the cool features that you could use through this process. When a company gets certified, more features will be unlocked. But for now, this will help you get started and get the company going as it relates to the BE impact assessment. So at this point, you know how the BE impact assessment is developed, the team that's responsible for it, the tools that are built into it, and how it adjusts or adapts based on the sector, the size, and the region that a company is based in. And so we will stop here for this session. And in case of any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'd say the only way you get yourself acclimatized to this assessment is by spending time in it. So go in, register, create a test account. If you already have one, go in and just start working, looking at the different features and playing around with it to see what else the tool does. Thank you.